TFA fam, what is up? What has
Yeah.
happened? Apologize for missing last week. Had a little things to take care of, but we are back this week. And we felt like with the NFL draft, literally 2 weeks from tonight, it'd be a good time to maybe do a little early ADP price check, kind of see where the market's at right now. So we're gonna be using some underdog fantasy ranking or ADP, just kind of go off of 'cause that's the best ADP you're gonna get right now. And there's some stuff to talk about on there. I was kind of surprised when I first dove into what some of the ADP is right now. So we're going to be getting into that. So let's just get right into it. Not waste anybody's time. So just looking at some of this underdog ADP right now, the first thing I wanted to look, really was excited to see and just kind of look at the first round because I expected, especially with the way things went last year and how bad the running back position is, I thought we were going to see maybe one, if not two, running backs go in the first round. But right now we have four, almost five running backs going in the first round. Right now you have Christian McCaffrey going at the 101 with CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Bijan, Justin Jefferson, Brees Hall, Amon St. Brown, Puka, AJ Brown, and Jameer Gibbs and Garrett Wilson currently going in the first round right now. And I was kind of surprised by that. Like I felt like there'd be more wide receivers going in the first round than that. I mean, obviously there's still eight wide receivers, but I was just surprised to see that many running backs come off the floor. But I guess it makes kind of sense because I feel like there's this kind of elite tier of the Christian McCaffrey, probably Bijan, Brees Hall, and then I think I don't know. I can't get on to Jameer Gibbs in the first round hype
Mm-mm.
train. I love Jameer Gibbs and I love the Lion situation, but I just I can't go with him there. I'm actually surprised where Jonathan Taylor's going. I felt like he should be in that range, but he's not. But right now, I was just kind of surprised with that. But maybe it is because people are trying to get that one elite running back before you get into the kind of ugly range.
I think it's exactly what it is. Like you said, I was definitely surprised to see that too. Like you were talking about, considering the way that everything went at the running back position last year. But running back, like whenever we did our early rankings, like just trying to put together your top 12 is really rough. Like there's just a lot of question marks. There's a lot of committees, just a lot of unknowns at this point. We have a running back class coming in that isn't as we don't think it's as bad as how it's being played out by a lot of people, but it's not great either. I think we're going to get some usable guys out of this class, but there's no headliners, so to speak. But yeah, I think it's exactly what it is, just because of how many question marks there are. If you're sitting there kind of like in the middle of the first, especially where some of these guys are grouped, obviously you have McCaffrey going at the top, but then you have Bijan and Brees kind of going in the middle, and Gibbs at the end of the first. You can still get a really nice wide receiver in the middle of the second on the way back through. So I think, to me, that's what how I would be thinking personally. I would only be having the three that you mentioned in the first round if I was going to take one. I am with you. I can't get on board with taking Gibbs at RB4. Uh, to peel back the curtains, I knew this is what we were going to be talking about, but I was kind of thinking we are just going to go like, too high, too low sort of thing. And then Kev's like, yeah, I got notes. We're going to talk about this. I'm like, oh, all right. So I was prepared to talk about how I cannot get on board with Gibbs at RB4. Talking about someone who finished as RB7 last year and half PPR points per game, just zero point 0.2 points per game ahead of David Montgomery. And if this defense can be better, I think that could, in theory, put the Lions in the driver's seat instead of playing from behind, which would in turn lead to more David Montgomery. He's going at RB19. So yeah, I'm with you. Gibbs would not be the fourth RB I would take here, much more in line with taking wide receivers. But we're going to kind of get to it a little bit later. After Garrett Wilson gets a little interesting at wide receiver as well. But for the first round, nothing else really stood out to me. Like Garrett Wilson keeps hanging around here at the end of the first, as he was last year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers. That to me, there's some other guys I'd probably rather have ahead of Wilson, but other than that, first round is kind of the usual suspects and the names I think that we were expecting to see.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And the Garrett Wilson thing is a little like I was like, I can't take him in the first round. Like but it's tough because like at first, you thought, okay, well, just wait. You can take Jake London, who I feel like is in a very similar situation, right? Both quarterbacks coming off, Achilles injuries, um, and stuff like that. And we know Kirk Cousins, when healthy, he can support multiple pass catchers, and that's why we're really excited about this Falcons offense. But even Jake London's going 17th overall, so I mean, you're not really getting much of a a dip on him either. So, I don't know. I just don't know how. And I love Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's fantastic, and I think with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, he can be really good. But it almost feels like you're paying for his ceiling rather than anything else. But another one that really stood out to me, I think, is the Texan situation right now. Don't get me wrong, CJ Stroud was phenomenal last year. But I mean, right now you have all three of the pass catchers going inside the top 40, with Nico Collins still being drafted at 22, and then Stephon Diggs is right next to him. And then you get, the little bit of a discount on someone like Tank Dell, who's going 39th overall. But I don't know. Like, I feel like one of these guys is certainly probably going to be a landmine, or it's going to be harder to project on a week to week basis with this many pass catchers here. The old adage, the old phrase, the cliche of too many mouths to feed. But, because the defense has actually improved a lot as well. And so if this team isn't playing necessarily from behind and having to play catch up and like, in shootouts, stuff like that, that could also pose a problem for how much we think they're going to throw the ball as well. So, it's hard for me to get on board. As much as I like Nico Collins, I can't be a buyer at that cost.
Yeah, I mean, at cost here, I'm definitely going Tank Dell, but even he is a little pricey considering he's coming off a major leg injury. He does look good in some of the videos that we've seen so far, but you mentioned going in the top 40 for Tank Dell as well. Like even that's getting a little, makes me a little nervous anyway. Kind of going off of that, like I said, I was putting together some notes on guys who I thought were too high or too low. CJ Stroud, absolutely one of them. Going at QB4 right now, ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Uh, ADP beginning of the fifth is kind of whatever. That's still a little too rich for me, but we're talking about someone who's QB 11 last year in points per game. Yes, obviously they added Stephon Diggs. It's going to be really hard for Stroud to pay off that price, though, because he has such a low rushing ceiling, right? Like talking about someone who averaged, I think, less than 3 rush attempts per game. I think it was around 11 rush attempts, 11 rushing yards per game. So in order for him to pay off that price to like finish within the top 5, the archetype of quarterback that he is with such a limited rushing ceiling, he's going to have to throw for 5,000 yards and approach 40 touchdowns in order to pay off that ADP. So I'm definitely out on that. Then going off of the wide receivers, totally agree with you. I think it's going to be really volatile week to week. I did take already an under on Stephon Diggs receiving total. It was at 10-25.5, I think, on Bet365. So I took the under there, but it's going to be a really fun offense to watch. Joe Mixon in there as well. Dalton Schultz got paid. So there's going to be plenty of weapons to go around. And like you said, if this defense is better, in the second year under D'Amico Ryans, that can also pose an issue for the passing offense. So loved Nico and Tank Dell, as of what was that, a week and a half ago, whenever that trade went through. But now with Diggs in the fold, I'm also out on those prices.
Yeah. I think something else that stood out to me too that is the rookie wide receivers. We're seeing, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there's somebody else that I'm just not thinking about, but I definitely know that generally speaking, we do not see. I mean, rookie running backs have been different, right? We've seen like even Bijan last year. I mean, who can forget the Clyde Edwards-Helaire year where he was drafted in the first round his rookie year? But like we see that quite a bit from rookies, running backs, but wide receivers. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is coming off the board at wide receiver 9 or 16th overall. You have Malik Neighbors, who's coming off the board at wide receiver 18th, 26th overall. And Rome Odunze is coming off the board at wide receiver 29, 45th overall. So that's pretty rich for any rookie wide receiver. And I don't know if I was hoping that maybe like a Dunze would be going I don't mind a Dunze as much at 45th overall. But obviously, landing spot's going to be really dependent on this. Obviously, that's going to play the biggest role here because I feel like there's some landing spots there in the first round. That's those top 10 picks where I think all three of them are going to go. That could end up being not great, right? Like, so let's say the Giants. I don't know how I feel
Yep,
about the Giants taking one of these wide receivers. Like if Malik Neighbors goes to the Giants, then I think that he's probably going to fall pretty considerably from where he's coming off the board right now.
for
I
sure.
think a lot of people expect the Cardinals have a look to be a team that's really going to take Marvin Harrison. You know, in theory, if they don't trade back, but it just makes me nervous because that is really, really rich. And I mean, asking Marvin Harrison to pay off wide receiver 9 ADP his rookie season is tough. Now, if he does land with the Cardinals, he's likely, outside of Trey McBride, I mean, who else is really there right now with Kyler Murray? So, I mean, the target volume could definitely be there, but still, I mean, taking a rookie wide receiver that high is certainly a thing, is certainly something.
Yeah, I mean, Marvin Harrison would be the one that, despite him having the highest price here, he is the one that I feel most comfortable with because it does feel like he would land with Arizona, slides in there with Kyler Murray, becomes the top option right away, immediately right away. And like you were saying, if Neighbors lands with the Giants, even like Odunzi, end of the fourth, if he were to stay there, is still okay. Don't love it though. Definitely don't love it. But like if Neighbors at that price, he's would absolutely fall there for me. I just can't imagine taking Neighbors ahead of guys like Pittman and DK and Devonta Smith, Rasheed Rice. Obviously, that's a situation that's kind of up in the air right now. And we still need to find out what's going to happen with his legal issues. But Neighbors is a little bit too high for me. Like I said, I never thought I'd say I feel best about taking a rookie at 16 overall, but if this ADP were to stay and he ends up with Arizona, it's by far the best situation. Because even if someone like Odunzi lands with, a popular pick for him for the past couple of weeks has been, potentially to the Bears at 9. That could be interesting. But now you're talking about him landing in a spot with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. So, can't imagine that coaching staff is going to want to have Caleb Williams just dropping back 35, 36 times per game and just airing the ball out. So, not sure how much volume would be going around. And like I said, you talk about some of the guys who are already there. Could make for a situation where you're looking at, whoever the rookie might be there getting 110 targets, probably, maxing out at. So, going to be hard to pay off that type of ADP. But I also think it's just because everyone and their mother has been talking about how good this wide receiver class is for, the past 4 months, getting really hyped up. And then you have, some of these other receivers that are in kind of in limbo type of situations. So, you have Brandon Ayuk, who's been rumored to be getting traded and then not traded for the past 3 months. Devontae Adams, who knows what that quarterback situation is going to look like. So I can see someone like Marvin Harrison going ahead of some of those guys, but I would definitely be taking Drake London ahead of Marvin Harrison at this point. But like I said, I don't hate it, assuming that he lands with Arizona, because the dude's, like I say, he's going to step into 130, 140 targets immediately, like without question. There's no one else there that is pushing him outside of Trey McBride, and he's going to be able to get his too.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the tight end position, I think this is probably one of the. I mean, at least right now, that typically we see a guy like Travis Kelsey go in the first, late first, or even early second, something like that. But not the case so far this year. Right now, the first tight end coming off the board is Sam Lagoda, coming off the board at 32.7, with Travis Kelsey coming off the board at 41.8, and Trey McBride 49. Right after that is Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid, who obviously is in a fantastic spot now with Stephon Diggs gone, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, and then you have Brock Bowers at 79.5. But so right now, I mean, you can get a little bit of a dip if this holds. I mean, on the tight end position, because typically we see them go a lot sooner. I think this kind of sets up nicely because of where these guys are coming off the board. And I quite honestly, it's kind of surprising that even George Kittle's coming off the board at tight end 7. I mean, you have guys like, Kyle Pitts is getting the steam once again. It just feels like, hopefully this is the year. Hopefully this is the year he can put it all together.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised to see that. I thought Pitts would kind of be in like that 8-9 range. I don't hate it. That's for sure. I definitely don't hate it. Especially when you're talking about going ahead of Kittle, who's just so boomer bust. If you've had him in any format where you're actually paying attention to lineups and scores, he's just one of the more frustrating uh, fantasy players to have on your roster because he'll go out and get you. He'll go out there and win you a week with a 42 point type performance, and then you get three in a row where he's just going 3 for 20, 2 for 20, and that sort of thing. But I'm with Pitts at tight end 6. I can definitely get behind that. I do really believe in Kirk Cousins. I really like how this offense is shaping up. So I was surprised to see that he was at the point that he's at, but I definitely can't knock it. Looking a little bit further down the list here, just in terms of someone who might be of value, I'm looking at tight end 18 at Michael Mayer. I was just talking about the who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be like. I'm assuming it's going to end up if they don't grab one of these rookies, I'm assuming Gardner Minshew will beat out Aiden O'Connell. And we've seen Gardner Minshew at least be passable for fantasy purposes. So I think with Austin Hooper out of the fold, Michael Mayer is someone who could definitely step up and pay off that or surpass that tight end 18 price. Really wasn't anyone else that I was looking at on this list for tight ends where I was kind of where it really stood out to me, good or bad. It kind of is what it is, right? You have your top names, and you kind of look around for a flyer, someone you can take a chance on if you miss out on like those top 8 or so tight ends. But it's definitely better than it has been in years past. But like I said, the in terms of guys that are sticking out to me in a good or a bad way weren't a lot of them. But I also think Travis Kelsey going nine spots in ADP behind Sam Laporta, that's definitely a price I can get behind. And I can't imagine that stays, but if it does, I think we're going to be talking about Travis Kelsey as like an actual target in drafts, whereas for the past couple of years he's been going around that 1-2 turn. So it'd be nice to actually get my hands on some Travis Kelsey for once.
Yeah, he's always been hard to draft because of where he comes off the board and the price. Now, don't get me wrong, he's been able to pay it off, but um, we talked about the rookie wide receivers, but it's kind of the opposite for rookie running backs right now. The first running back that comes off the board is Trey Benson right now, who's coming off the board at um, 102.6. Now, I think with this, I think it makes sense because we just don't know where they're going to land. We don't know their draft capital. It makes more sense. I mean, we already know this running back class is not great. But I do think there is a big four in terms of running backs that I think that have the potential, depending on landing spot, depending on the draft capital, that could end up being somewhat like a quasi workhorse type back, right? I think for me, it's Trey Benson, it's Jonathan Brooks whenever he's healthy, and then I think Jalen Wright is also in that conversation as well as another running back here that could. And who's the other name that's escaping me? Why am I not?
Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd is the other one. I think all four of those guys have the skill set, the requisite size to be able to do it. Obviously, there's red flags to all of them, and then when we bring these guys up, it's all, like you try to hype them up a little bit and talk good about them, but then also just understand that like they're not on the level of a lot of these other running backs that we've seen in the last couple of years. So there's still more. I think one or two of them are going to come up out of this, and I don't think this is going to be like I don't know if you remember the draft class with Bishop Sankey. Remember that draft class? And
No.
everybody, we had nobody else to talk about, so everyone was hyping up Bishop Sankey, and we know that didn't work out. But so right now, I mean, I think those are going to be the like because there's still some decent, really, or some really solid landing spots that one of these guys could land in that would get them to really catapult themselves up. But none of them are going to be like first round ADP guys or even second round. Like I think maybe a guy could find his way up to like the fourth or the fifth round depending on where they were drafted. But by all it sounds like Marshawn Lloyd and Trey Benson have the best shot of going in the first round of going, the first off the board. I think most of these guys are going to be probably drafted like late day 2 something like that, maybe early day two, something like that. None of them are going to be first round picks. But I think Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Wright, and Marshawn Lloyd are the four. I have no interest in Blake Corum. I know there's a hive out there that really love Blake Corum, but I just all of his efficiency metrics are terrible. Now, some of it could be the injury that he came off of last year, and maybe he can turn it back around because in 2022 he was better in that department. But he just seems like a grinder, and that seems like that's about it.
Yeah, I think his hands are a little bit better than what he is given credit for. I think if you go back and watch some of his earlier stuff at Michigan, you can see a little bit more burst. Definitely doesn't have stones for hands, but I agree. He's probably like I have him at RB4, I believe, just because there's so many questions with this class, and Corum to me is probably like the best like pure runner out of the group. Like when it comes to like the like just the actual like position of running back. I think he's probably the best in this class, but again, it's not saying much just because there are so many questions and so many warts on a lot of these guys. But Jonathan Brooks is by far the RB1 for me. Also, getting the reports coming out now that he should be cleared in time for the beginning of the season. Should be good to go for training camp as well. Although, like his level of activity, I guess, is still a little bit up in the air, but he should be ready to go for the beginning of the season. I've seen some talk about the Cowboys potentially landing him, and if that happens, he's going to be your rookie RB1. He'll be the one who ends up going up into the third, fourth round because there's just nobody else there. So Jonathan Brooks is the guy that I'm going to be keeping my eye on as far as that goes. I'm still in on Bucky Irving. I know that did not test well. He's a small guy, but if you actually watch him and his time in Oregon, really good player, really fun to watch. He's going to fall into that like Devin Singletary, Kyron Williams mold for me, where we're talking about someone who undersized, tested awful at the combine, but I still think that he's hashtag good at football. So Bucky Irving, to kind of go even further down, talking about someone who is going at RB56, 185 overall on Underdog right now. That's definitely a shot that I would be willing to take. And the other guy for me for the rookies, going what is this 9 spots? No wait, 5 spots. Sorry, after Bucky Irving, someone who is also like not flashy, not going to get you super excited, but I think is just really good in terms of an all-around rookie running back, and that is Ray Davis out of Kentucky. So those are the guys who I'm keeping my eye on. And then who's go ahead. Never mind. Keep going. I completely think I just had a stroke.
I mean, I think there's some other names that of players who we're not sure where their situation is going to land after the draft. But I mean, I think guys like Jaleel McLaughlin going 154.2, who I think he's going to have himself definitely a role there. We know Sean Payton's rushing attacks are some of the best in the league, which still was last year in terms of expected fantasy points. So I think somebody like him, Kendre Miller, I think is another name, in terms of just kind of later round guys that, really trying to monitor what their situation is going to look like. Izzy Abandakanda, right now, they don't really have anybody else behind Brees Hall. Something was to happen to Brees Hall. I think he's a name that I definitely want to have stored in the back of my mind, depending on what happens. Michael Carter as well. James Conner is getting older. They don't, again, another team that could possibly use another running back, but we'll see what they do. So, there's quite a few of these later round guys that I still think that are definitely in play, depending on what happens with the draft. And like we said, like this draft isn't super deep, so I think there's a handful of guys that I really get excited about, and then the rest of them, I just think they're all role players. There where you have guys that maybe are more like short down distance back, like Audric Estime, who is more of just that your between the tackles type grinder, not somebody that you're going to ask to be much as much of a pass catcher in that sense. Then you have probably one of the most frustrating players who even at the beginning of this year, a lot of people were in love with Braylon Allen, and the dude just doesn't play like he looks. He looks like he should just be a big bruiser, athletic, super young, but he doesn't. He plays like he's a 200-pound running back, and he's not. I think he's like almost 240. And it's
Yeah.
frustrating. It really reminds me of, and somebody, I don't know why it made me think of this, but something that there was a player that came out a few years ago, uh, that everybody was saying that about, and that was Deonta Foreman. Whenever he was coming out, that was kind of the knock against him, that he played really small. He didn't really take on contact very well, and that's kind of what Braylon Allen kind of reminds me of. But I just can't really get on board with him. I think I mean, and he's still really young. Maybe he figures it out, because there's a lot to like there, athleticism wise, but he just doesn't play the way you would think. But I think past that, I think, looking at a lot of this ADP right now, some of it's not shocking. Like I said, I mean, wide receivers are flying off the board. I mean, the wide receiver 30 comes off the board at 48th overall. I mean, the wide receivers are just flying off. And then to get to the running back, I mean, even the RB 24 comes off the board at 87. So there's a pretty big gap. There's an early run here right now of running backs kind of going off the board early, and then it just kind of falls off once you get the quarterbacks, the tight ends involved, where running backs aren't going as high. I mean, even the RB11s coming off the board at 40th overall. So I think some of these guys are going to be safe. I don't think we're as worried. Maybe like a Rashad White, who's coming off the board at 47. Do they go out there and try to add another running back? They kind of talked about it this offseason. They would like to get somebody in there. I know, what was it? Who was it last year? Sean Tucker, that we everyone wanted to make a thing, and did absolutely nothing there. Where that's what made Rashad White so valuable, because his ADP was being depressed, and we seem to do this every year with like UDFA guys, stuff like that, where we just want to make them a thing and we don't want to believe in the other player. I could totally see that happening this year with Isaiah Pacheco once again. There's been a lot of buzz around here that the Chiefs really like. What is it, Rasheen Ali? They actually had him in
Ooh.
for a visit, which he very much profiles as a guy the Chiefs like. But I could totally see him being drafted, and then everybody just completely shitting on Isaiah Pacheco again, because it seems to happen every year.
Without fail, absolutely. I mean, we need something to talk about between May and August, and then those beat reports start coming in about the rookies, and it's hard not to get carried away. So you mentioned Rashad White. He was actually someone who I was prepared to talk about as someone who is going a little bit too high. I think you talk about a guy who's just thriving off volume. You were talking about Blake Corum and his efficiency stats. Rashad White was hashtag not good when you look at some of the other some of the underlying metrics there. So if they go out and they bring in any sort of competition for him, even if it's just to spell him for a little bit. I mean, I think he was second in total carries last year among running backs. He was in the top 10 in targets. The dude just got literally everything coming his way last year. So he's someone who I'm a little bit hesitant on at that price at this time. Obviously, if they don't do much, he's going to be fine there again as a RB2 volume dependent type of running back. But I would be passing on him at his current price, because if they don't draft someone, it's not like you're going to be missing out and he's about to shoot up draft boards and his ADP is going to take off. So he's someone who I would just pump the brakes on right now anyway, until we see how the draft plays out, because I feel like they have to bring in somebody, but on that depth chart to spell him a little bit. Just was not efficient with those touches whatsoever.
Yeah, I think another one that similar is like a Kyron Williams. Like, um, does he end up being a landmine? Like, I know Sean McVay is somebody that will definitely ride a running back into the ground. I mean, see Todd Gurley, and he's more, but he is one of the rare, like, just loves that workhorse back. Like, that's kind of what he's always been. Um, but he is going rather high as well. If he's right outside of the first round, then I just don't know if I could take him in the first. Maybe he burns me again. Obviously, there's a big difference last year. He was pretty much a guy that went undrafted. Two drafts that people were either picking up or took him with a late round flyer, and obviously he paid off. I mean, he was one of the top three running back last year, but I don't know if I can buy that ADP at his price. But I wanted to talk about because we haven't really talked much. We kind of hit slightly, but on the quarterbacks, and we're seeing because last year, if you remember, we saw like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
Thank
some of them are
God.
getting close to like first round picks. And this year, it's kind of course corrected where the first
Yeah.
quarterback's coming at 30th. And I will say this: if Patrick Mahomes ADP were to hold at 52, I'd have no problem taking him there. At that point, you're able to kind of stack up the team a little bit. You could get a couple of elite either wide receiver, running back, whatever, and being able to get Patrick Mahomes at 52. I mean, but even some of these other names that are, I mean, if you wanted to, Joe Burrow, I think bounces back in a big way. I mean, he was
Yeah.
just a disaster last year, dealing with a lot of injuries, but he's coming. He is being drafted at 73.9. Dak Prescott, Jordan Love was really good last year. They're being drafted in the 80s along with Kyler Murray. Um, and then Brock Purdy, 97th overall, and then Caleb Williams as the QB 12 at 105.3. But I'm perfectly okay with taking a shot on a Patrick Mahomes at 52nd if that holds. And Anthony Richardson is kind of the guy that just because he got hurt so early last year, I'm actually surprised his ADP is QB 6, 59th overall. I thought it would be a little bit later than that.
Yeah, I was expecting to see him kind of going toward like the back end of the QB1. It's not kind of smack dab in the middle of there. I mean, talking about him only going 7 picks after Patrick Mahomes, he's going at 59 and a half. But like I kind of get it because the glimpses we saw of him, he was put like he is the juiced up version of Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, we're talking about like a Cam Newton type of quarterback. We know he has a huge arm. We saw what Gardner Minshew was able to do in this offense, not being anywhere near the type of athlete. So I think it's Anthony Richardson is someone who is really really exciting, and you kind of hit on all the guys that I was previously looking at in terms of quarterbacks that I'd be looking to take outside of the top names. Like I said, I already touched on it a little bit, but CJ Stroud going at QB4 ahead of Patrick Mahomes is something I just cannot and will not stand for. Can't do it. I even think, obviously it doesn't look great right now, but like even like Justin Herbert at QB 14, if that's a team that doesn't go the offensive line route like a lot of people are talking about, if they trade down, they could still put them in a spot to grab one of these wide receivers. If they stay there and they take a neighbor's or a Dunzi, I think that's something that could be really really interesting. So um, even Herbert going at QB 14, like I said, it does not look good right now at all, Jim. Not great, Bob. But if they add, another piece or two to that offense, I think he'd be fine at QB 14. Kirk Cousins at QB 17. I know he's coming off the major injury with the Achilles, but now you're dropping him into an offense with London, Pitts, even Darnell Mooney is a wide receiver too, is an intriguing option there. They're a team that kind of, people are talking about what if they just double down and they go and they take one of the top three wide receivers instead of going defense, how a lot of people are expecting. That could be even crazier. And you're talking about a team that has a really good offensive line as well. So Kirk Cousins, the disrespect just continues to roll on, and he's going to be back up in that QB 11 to 13 range the way that he always is. So he's the only other one that I'd throw out there. I think Stafford at QB 19, if you're talking about for best ball purposes anyway, getting your QB 2. If you want to wait and go Stafford as your QB 1 in a redraft league, I don't hate that either. Still looks like he has a lot of good football left in him from what we saw last year. And then kind of after that is where I start to like get a little nervous if we're talking about taking one of these guys as your late round QB 1. But the draft is gonna see where a lot of these guys pan out. Like if you were to drop JJ McCarthy into the Vikings, that's something I would absolutely be interested in as well.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think there's some late round options here, and even someone like a Jaden Daniels, who I think has some of that rushing upside that we so much look for in quarterbacks. He's QB 18 right now, It sounds like he's almost a stone cold lock to go to the Commanders at this point, and he enters a at least an offense that has obviously Terry McLaurin is there. You still have Jahan Dotson there, so I mean at least enters a situation where there's definitely some weapons for him to utilize there, and really Terry McLaurin has never really been truly unlocked because they've never just really had an elite quarterback or really even a good quarterback for that matter. And we're talking about them out here running guys like Sam Howell and guys like that who's he's had throughout most of his career. He's kind of been on the DJ Moore fast track of guys who just, if they could just get a strong quarterback, they could be unlocked. And so Jane Daniels, I think, you already mentioned Matt Stafford. If Aaron Rodgers can bounce back, I mean, that offense with the weapons that they have already there, he could definitely be that guy. I just think there's quite a few of some late round quarterbacks here. Even a QB2 option, but you mentioned JJ McCarthy. It feels more and more likely that they're going to end up trading up and they're going to go get JJ McCarthy. Like, I just can't see them going into the season with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Like, that's going to be, he may start the year as the quarterback, but I can't imagine he's going to be their only option. That offense is still really built really well. Kevin O'Connell has done a really good job as coaching that team. I know they have some injuries with, TJ Hawkinson, who's going to be coming back for a pretty significant injury, but still have Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and all these weapons. I just can't see them just rolling in with Sam Darnold at quarterback. But I definitely think he'll start. It'll be one of those situations where it's he'll start for the first half or the first couple of games until people are like, get this guy out of here. Get whoever the rookie quarterback is, who will enter one of the best situations you could really look at in terms of weapons. Obviously, Caleb Williams is obviously in a really good spot too, with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen as well. But and then you have Daniel Jones coming off the board at QB 31, who seems, and it's even possible the Giants could try to move up as well. And maybe if the Cardinals don't want to fall back as far to the Vikings, I mean they could be a team that's in play. There've been a lot of speculation that they could be looking at a quarterback because I know there's been some buzz around like Michael Penix and Bo Nix. But those guys feel like at best late first or second round picks. Like I don't know. I don't see those guys in the same tier as the top four.
No, not at all. And it seems like Nix is the guy who I think we could probably expect to go QB5. I know Penix is starting to get some buzz, but to what 23, 24-year-old quarterback who's had a handful of serious injuries. I just can't imagine a team wanting to spend first round capital on him, even to get that fifth year of control and that fifth year option. So I think it's going to be Nix, and it kind of feels like it's the Broncos. I would think maybe they trade down and still take their quarterback.
Man, the AFC West is looking like it's going to be really rough this year. I mean, it's crazy too because Justin Herbert's going on as QB 14, but I can't really blame them because they have no weapons right there. I mean, they feel like one of the bigger locks too to take a wide receiver. And if like Malik Neighbors falls there, then I think you feel pretty good about it, at least better than what you would have because man, they have nobody there with after releasing Mike Williams, trading away Keenan Allen. Like whatever rookie wide receiver falls there is probably going to go. Could end up being the guy who's the number one wide receiver, depending on what the Cardinals decide to do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that being said, I mean, I don't, I didn't want to do like super deep here. We have a lot of time, obviously, between now and the August to really dive into this. And some of the stuff we do. We just need landing spots and stuff like that for these rookies to really start to pinpoint because there's going to be some players that are negatively affected by this. Hopefully, like last year we had Zach Charbonnet get drafted by the Seahawks and just kind of put a wrench in everything. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm sure it will at some. Really, I don't have a whole lot else to talk about that. I just kind of want to do sort of a brief overview. Is there anybody else you wanted to hit on?
Derrick Henry, RB10. What do you think? Just someone who we've been trying to call the downfall for the past 5 years on this show, and he just keeps finishing as a RB1 each and every year. Now you're pairing him on Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. What do you think of Derrick Henry at RB10?
No. Like, I get it, right? Like, the offense that he's gonna be in, you have Lamar Jackson. Um, the offense is going to be significantly better, so I think maybe touchdown equity could be higher, and maybe that's where he really makes but I don't think he's gonna get 280, 290, 300 carries. I don't think that's gonna happen. Um, it always hurts running backs. We talk about this a lot. With a running quarterback, like he's going to lose opportunities there. And he's not already heavily involved in the passing game. I mean, he has seen a little bit of an uptick. Saw 28 catches last year, 33 the year before that. But I think he falls back down to probably like 10 to 15 catches, something like that. This is not something Lamar Jackson does. And so I don't know. Like I think he can win off touchdown equity just because the offense is going to be so much better than anything he's been on the last 2 or 3 years out there in Tennessee. But I'm not in love with it. I just feel like he's going to be very boom or bust in terms of touchdowns, and you're going to be hoping for that every single week.
And last one, just because you brought up Tennessee, Tony Pollard, RB22, in or out.
I think I would just take whoever the cheaper option is at this point.
I
If
think
Tajay
Spears.
Spears,
I think Spears is going at RB34.
yeah, I would be feel much more comfortable taking him there because I think it's going to be a split backfield. I
Yeah,
don't.
Spears is going at RB34 behind Brian Robinson and Zach Moss. Trey Benson also going ahead of Spears.
Yeah, I would take the dip there on that. I would take whoever's the cheaper option is at running back. So I just can't. I can't get on. And I'm a big Tony Pollard guy, and I think Tony Pollard played a lot better down the stretch than he did. But I mean, his ADP right now is RB22, going right around. Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner is kind of going right around there. Najee Harris, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift are all kind of in that range of running back. So um, I don't I don't necessarily like hate it because the ADP is not terrible, but that I just don't know how good that team's going to be. I know they went out and added Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins is still there, and second year for Will Levis, and if they can, the offensive line and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm just not as enthused with it than I think maybe other people are. Maybe my mind will change once we get to May or June, something like that, and I'll start to like it a little bit more. But I think I would just buy the dip on Tajay Spears and call it a day because he's going 114th overall.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So, anyways, that being said, don't want to waste any more time. Just kind of wanted to, I thought it'd be a good exercise to kind of go through so let's see where some of these people are coming off. And then we'll really see where some of these players end up, moving up, moving down once the NFL draft happens. Only 2 more weeks away. I'm excited about it. NFL draft's always good times. And because then after that, we have the, only thing to really look forward to, I guess, is training camp because, you got like rookie mini camps and mini camps, but nobody cares about that. So, yeah. NFL draft is almost here, so that'll be fun. I think this is going to be a really fun class, whether it's the wide receivers and where the running backs land and stuff like that. So, that being said, go ahead and get out here. I hope everybody has a good weekend. We'll be back again next week. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be. I don't think we've discussed that, but we'll probably be back next week. Figure out something on that. And right before, we'll be a week away from the NFL draft. So, hope everybody has a good weekend. Stay safe, and we will be back again next week. Bye.